We are live. You are listening to Interchain FM, a podcast about all things interoperability, DeFi, and NFTs, and so much more. Today, we're here talking to the creator of Cosmos, Jae Kwon. Jae Kwon, welcome to the podcast. This is the first time you're here.
Hello. Well, nice to be here.
Glad you're back in action. And interestingly enough, the timing has worked well with you taking AIB over again, Tendermint Inc. or Ignite or New Tendermint now, and coming back into action full swing with the Atom 2.0 proposal, which is what we're here to talk about. So the big question is, why is the founder of Cosmos opposed to a proposal that is supposedly going to improve the utility of the atom?
Yeah, okay. Let's go right at it, huh?
We're going to go straight into it. I don't think you need any introduction, so I'm not going to spend time doing that. I think most of the people tuning in are going to have at least some context about it. I've also done a primer video to give everyone just the download of the key differences between the two. So let's just enumerate the things that you find problematic about it. And I think I'm going to provide a foil for you, Jay, which is, steelman some of the arguments for Atom 2.0, because, people who voted yes on it just want to see Atom do something and be useful. That being said, we want to provide critical analysis of what's exactly being proposed here. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay. There's largely two problems. If I were to try to categorize the problems, right? There's problems with the white paper, and then there's problems with how this thing was pushed. Okay. So here's the problem with the white paper. There's a lot, but let's just start with some. Maybe the main one is that it's you can tell from the first white paper, and then the first Atom 2.0 version, and then there's a second and a third, and the third one got submitted, right? And there's basically 40 million atoms, or at the time it was 500 million atoms going into treasury that is, it's not controlled by the Cosmos Hub governance, and there's a select number of council members, and this was, the justification for this large inflation was that, we should turn Atom into money. And if we want to turn Atom into money, it better not be exponentially inflationary. And so, in other words, supposedly they're trying to turn Atom into a non-inflationary, deflationary token. And in order to do so, they say, well, we better get some atoms up front so we can do some development. But when you actually look at the paper, it doesn't make it deflationary. I mean, they talk about, there's going to be this transition phase and a steady phase. But they say towards the end, but we're still going to make 2/3 bonded. Okay. And if 2/3 of the atoms are not bonded, then we're going to go back to the old issuance model. Not to mention using governance to create a large inflation like this, like, when is it going to stop, really? There's no 21 million hard limit bound like Bitcoin has. It seems like governance can issue coins, mint coins whenever they want at this point afterwards, And in fact, after the Atom 2.0 paper started passing, and it looked like it was going to pass almost unanimously because 90-something%, less than 1% were saying no. In the forum, and they were already changing the number of tranches from 10 to 12. So the whole premise that we need to create, why we need to create atoms up front wasn't right. It's not actually proposing to turn an atom into a deflationary token. In fact, the only thing they needed to do, the same thing can be achieved with Cosmos as is. All we need to do is remove the minimum bound of inflation of 7%, because right now the inflation rate can only go from 7 to 20%. And naturally, as interchain security is adopted, and there's more revenue being earned through interchain security, the inflation rate would go down. And with a bit of change, we can even make it go negative, because if it's really nice, really profitable to bond your atoms to earn transaction fees, earn rewards, because there are many users in the system, then there would be too many atoms bonded, and in order to keep 2/3 bonded, there would need to be a penalty, right? So the inflation rate would even be negative. Okay, and then if we need cash, if we need capital on the Cosmos hub, then there's already a mechanism that lets you do that, and it's the tax and community pool system. We just need to increase the tax rate. Currently, it's 2%. We could increase it to 4, or 6, or 10, or 20, really whatever we want, just about. And that revenue would go into the community pool, and from there, from the community pool, we can be careful in how we spend it. And we've been doing this already the whole time, right? So there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to send money or atoms from the community pool. Sorry, it's not money, but it's the best form of money we have right now, right? Towards the Treasury DAO, and for a particular purpose. So there should be a contract. There should be some sort of, it should be anytime we send money from the community pool to anything, really, like Treasury DAO or a multi-sig address, there should be a well-drafted contract that specifies what the money is going to be used for, But anyways, so in short, the biggest problem is it's doing like a Jedi mind trick to try to justify a large $500 million inflation, going to a treasury that is not the community pool, and so it's more centralized there. And that's one problem. And if you wanted to do this, if you really wanted funds, you didn't have to do this anyways. All you need to do is increase the tax. All right. Another big problem is too much emphasis in liquid security and liquid staking, with really no consideration for the risks involved with liquid staking. So this is like a problem I'll talk about. There's a lot that can go wrong with liquid staking. We don't know all the ways it can go wrong, because it's really kind of like a piece of a Lego block, and this one happens to be pretty dangerous. And depending on how you mix and match it with other things that's going on outside of liquid staking, it'll blow up in different ways. The most interesting, in general, with liquid staking, there's governance risks. There's a hostile takeover risks, or like liquidity crunch based risks, and there's also self-sabotage risk, and there's also this risk of just compounding, delegators and validators compounding in order to get more representation of atoms, and then just generally the whole marketplace being vulnerable to any sudden crash or any sudden, any amount of slashing. So I'll talk about some of these. Here's the governance risk, right? So imagine, say, Quicksilver, right? Liquid staking application does a really good job. It's like a zone, right? It uses interchain accounts to manage liquid staking, and it does such a good job of implementing liquid staking that everyone goes over and liquid stakes there. It's like the best place to do it. The problem is once you have enough people going to Quicksilver or any other liquid staking application, that application has that much governance control. And of course, it's natural for the application to give control of governance back to the stakers, right? But there's two things wrong here. Imagine like if 70% of the staking of the Cosmos Hub came from liquid staking from Quicksilver, right? There's two large categories of problems that can happen here. One is now we're beholden to the software of Quicksilver. Maybe there's a bug. If something goes wrong, then a single bug there or anywhere, in any Quicksilver app or any liquid staking application can take over the Cosmos Hub's governance. That's a pretty huge deal. Okay. Another problem is this creates the incentive to devise ways to utilize the governance power in the application. And so, it's just like to say, power begets corruption, or absolute power begets absolute corruption. And with a popular application like that, it's going to be hard, very hard, or maybe impossible.
Wait, Jay, before you move to your next point, I want to elaborate on the pitfalls of liquid staking and the current naive design that it is being proposed, in such a way as to basically circumvent the 14-day unbonding period that is just like inherent to Tendermint BFT. So, if we look at liquid staking on Ethereum POS, you can basically infer that something like this is definitely going to happen on Cosmos. So like on Ethereum, between Lido and Coinbase, that's 40% of the voting power for all of ETH POS. So now we have gone from a relatively decentralized proof of work based chain to a completely devastatingly centralized proof of stake chain. So, given that Cosmos is proof of stake, like we are not immune to that if there were some extra protocol thing like liquid staking on top of our normal BFT proof of stake that kind of circumvents security in that way. Which is why I call
40%.
It's 40%, which is devastating. So that means any regulator comes in and imposes some law, OFAC sanctions. It's a captured chain effectively, right? Because you just have to go to Coinbase, which is within U.S. jurisdiction, and you just have to go to Lido wherever they are incorporated in. So, or I guess, you could go to the Lido DAO and just, it's the validator topology is still, not more decentralized than what ETH proof of work was. So, you could just take a look at that and use that as a lesson to peer into the future of what could happen to Cosmos. Because right now we're at a much smaller scale than Ethereum, which is why these problems like aren't here at our doorsteps yet. But they're going to come. Like when Cosmos gets big enough, like we're going to fall into the same trajectory if we don't take the steps to like take precaution.
Well, Django, tell us more why we shouldn't be, why we should be wary of liquid staking. You're doing a better job than I am.
Well, it's just the way it's currently being proposed is a naive design. You know, I think the intention is great, obviously, because people want to, you know, double dip, basically. Kill two birds with one stone, kill two birds with the same underlying collateral. And there is a way forward to be able to do this. I mean, I don't have a good answer for the Cosmos Hub yet, but you know, like Osmosis, superfluid staking, and interfluid staking works, but that's because it's a DEX and it has collateral tokens that you could stake. You know, so we could reason about these things and implement something like superfluid staking for the hub, but you know, just not in the naive model that's currently being proposed right now, because that's just bad for security.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it leads to centralization.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some of the authors, you know, they recognize that, yeah, it does trade off decentralization. And that's not been solved yet.
Honestly, I've come around. So, you know, when I saw Atom 2.0, and I was like, oh no, we gotta fix Atom 2.0. So I try to create a constitution that tries to capture some of the fixes, and part of the solution there, one of the solutions there was to limit liquid staking by limiting the amount of interchain accounts staking possible. Right? Where if there's too much interchain staking, when there's too much staking through interchain accounts, then some kind of tax would kick in, so there's a disincentive. But you know, I realized there's even just with any amount of liquid staking, there's this strange risk of self-sabotage, right? So you're imagine we have like advanced crypto markets and there's a shorting market. So you can take just about any token and create a market where you can short it. I mean, we should go there. Eventually we'll get there for doing a good job. But when you combine liquid staking tokens for, say, you know, a particular validator, and then you short it, you have an incentive to double sign your validator. And so the problem is, you know, basically when you have insiders, you're giving incentive for insiders in a validator company to sabotage their own validator. You know, I think this makes the whole system worse.
I'm not fully understanding. So when price starts falling precipitously, there's no.
What it is, you know, when the liquid staking token gives the power of, say, validator, you know, sysops employees to at any moment decrease the value of the liquid staking token. So they can slash their validator at any time, right?
Sorry, what's the incentive for them to slash themselves?
With the shorting market, you win when the value of something goes down. You can mix and match that with leverage, for example. So, you know, with a short, when you short your own liquid staking token, you can make money by slashing your own validator.
Why? Because slashing your validator does what? It decreases.
Well, let's say I'm an employee. Let's say I have no stake in this validator company. right? I'm just getting paid. I have some shares in the company, whatever, but I don't have that much stake. Okay. But I have the ability to double sign for this validator because I have access to the infrastructure. Right. Now, if I borrow some money from someone, buy some liquid staking tokens, or if I borrow money and leverage, get more money, and then buy a bunch of liquid staking tokens, and then I short it, that means as soon as I double sign for this validator, I would have made a lot of money. And I can do this just about at any time. It's in my control because I, as a sysops person for a validator company, I can do it at any time.
So, well, I'm missing the part where, like, what is the point of double signing? Is the thesis that if a DevOps employee double signs for that validator, the thesis is that the price will go down because more atom is burned?
No, because the way staking works and slashing works, right? The liquid staking token represents the amount of atoms you would get back after slashing. So, therefore, if a validator gets slashed, the amount of atoms you can get back through liquid staking tokens goes down.
Uh-huh. Right? And you're saying that...
So therefore, the value of the liquid staking goes down immediately.
Okay. And given enough size, this could... and assuming that the amount that they leveraged and shorted is above the collateral value of...
No, I mean, it's...
Well, okay, so they're just an employee, right? So yeah, they don't have
so
any...
if they don't have enough stake, right, they're just incentivized to do this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. So okay, you're enumerating an out of protocol sort of social dynamic.
Maybe. Yeah, I suppose so. But it's a dynamic that probably exists just about any validator, right?
Okay,
especially the big ones.
Yeah. Okay, some like rogue employees. So you're saying we cannot assume that even employees within validator companies are honest actors. So there's that.
Yeah, we can't. We generally can't. Yeah. So as soon as there's that's why you have to engineer things right and to watch out for risks like this.
Yeah.
The main problem, I think, is not only that there's this kind of risk, but no one's talking about the risks of liquid staking enough that we understand all the risks.
Yeah. It's just that there is a bit of like insular conversations within Cosmos just because Ethereum has run into a lot of these problems. They've had lending and borrowing markets and vaults, yield strategies, all of that at least, a year and a half before we did. We're like in Cosmos, we're still building all of those protocols out. And it's good to take a lesson from all of the hacks that have been, observed in the Ethereum ecosystem because we could learn a lot, right? But it just seems like, when I talk to a lot of the Cosmos people, there's like less awareness about some of them, even though some of the same mistakes were made. So the hope is that,
this goes to, I'll jump in. I guess I'll go back and forth. This is a problem with the way that, there are a lot of problems here, but one of the problems was the way in which Atom 2.0 was pitched. All right. So, so like during what Cosmoverse, the
nuclear verse.
The nuclear verse. Oh God. Cosmos used to be called nuclear.
Yes. Yeah. I was trying to make that joke. No one got it. They didn't know Cosmos is called nuclear.
Yeah. Oh gosh. what was I thinking? And then Kim Jong-un started firing missiles, and I was like, yeah, I better not do this.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was what, like someone was saying on stage that we're gonna get Adam to $1,000, you know.
Oh yeah, so so CryptoCito was asking, so is Adam going to go 1,000x? And then Zaki replied, yes, like 1,000x. But
Okay.
here's the thing, like
Yeah.
if so, on the other side of the coin, which is what happens on the inverse, where Adam does go up to 1,000x, well then there's clearly more incentive to unbond and dump the token than there is to stake it, and therefore that's also not really good for the Cosmos hub, right?
No,
Which is
well, I wouldn't say that, because there can always be some kind of balance, and still, the price of the token can go up. So presumably it's gone up to 1,000 because 1,000x or whatever, because one reason might be because the thing is actually earning revenue, and by bonding you can earn a percent, whatever, shares of all the transaction fees being generated. So in the long
but right
run,
now
if you do this
that's up to
right.
20%.
So what do you mean by 20%? So that's the other thing, is like, you're talking about the inflation rate of Atom, right?
I mean, how else do people generate yield other than like putting it on a DEX, I guess?
Yeah, well,
but they're not earning yield
what
in
it's supposed to
Atom.
be. Okay, so here's what the Cosmos Hub was pitched as, and what the Atom token model was, right, and should be. Let's say, we let many blockchains. Basically, we solved the scaling problem. You know how Bitcoin is always talking about, oh, we got to solve the scaling problem, Ethereum too, and they just didn't know how to solve the scaling problem.
We made federated sidechains a reality. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's one more step we need to do, in the very least, and that's ICS 1. Okay. So that's basically, so the Cosmos Hub has, it's run by one validator set, and we have to we have to enable the same validator set to run many more blockchains in parallel. Why? Because every blockchain that you need to run, because you need the capacity, you need to support more users, right? Is transaction fee revenue. It's super profitable to run a blockchain.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's
wait, in ICS1, in ICS1 for the consumer chains that they are providing security for, are they earning fees in the consumer chain token? Like, let's say USDC, for example. Or is it more Atom?
No,
yeah,
no,
it would have to,
because it should be the the
chain.
fee token on the consumer chain. Yeah, and we can say, I mean, we can say you should also support, this token and that token, perhaps, I don't know, but where we can be permissionless and say it doesn't matter, just give us a percent. I think that's fine. Yeah.
The problem with that is, in the Cosmos context, where we basically have zero fees, right? We have a highly competitive fee market. Where do you see people like validators earning a meaningful amount of fees? Because I don't see that.
All right, so I'll say this. Generally, just about, generally people will pay for convenience. Okay.
Yes.
And people are already paying a shit ton of money for financial transactions. And if you spend with a credit card, it's what, like, I don't know, it can be up to like 20 cents or some percent. If you send a wire, 3%, yeah, and there's a minimum amount too, denominated in cents, right? And then and when you send a bank wire transfer, it's like $25, and then sometimes the recipient charges too. So if we do better than that, I think people will have no problem paying, right? And then some people will say, oh, but like, it's just going to go towards zero. And if we try to limit the supply, then, that's bad. We don't want to limit the supply and create an artificial scarcity. And I'd say, no, it's not true. That's exactly what we want to do. We don't want to, we don't want every validator through ICS-1 to run a million parallel shard chains, because that's just super expensive and there's no need, right? At some point, there's a balancing point between supply and demand. And the whole basis of microeconomic theory is how to balance supply and demand to maximize profits. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you use this, these equations to extract from people who need medicine, like Shkreli did, right? Then that's bad. So you can take this to such an extreme that it's immoral, but otherwise, limiting supply to create scarcity to maximize profits is the bread and butter of capitalism.
Okay, so you're saying that consumer chains should charge more bips, basis points for the security that the Cosmos Hub offers. But
I would say, I would rephrase it. I would say that the Cosmos Hub, validator set, offering what I would call validator as a service, like basically EC2 kind of, but for blockchains. The Cosmos Hub validator set I believe it should ideally allow blockchains, consumer chains to run on this platform. In the long run, it should be somewhat permissionless. So there's like a market where if a blockchain can pay, then it runs on this platform. Okay. But what I'm saying is, there should be limits on who can run a blockchain. Not every Joe should be able to come up to the Cosmos Hub validator set and say, here, all 100, whatever, 75 right now, I don't know, all of you have to run my blockchain too, even though it's not generating any revenue. Right? That's not right. So there needs to be some limits, and the Cosmos Hub validator set should be able to define the terms so that it's profitable.
So yeah, let's look at USDC, for instance. So USDC is not a newly launched token, meaning that their total supply is constrained to their, whatever their economic model is, right? Like whatever they have custody in their treasury for every USDC that's lent out. So, that being said, that means that Circle needs to allocate a budget to provide a stipend for validators running this chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, I think a consumer chain, ideally, in the long run, I imagine that these consumer chains just need to figure out, someone needs to pay for it. Just like in EC2, it's like someone ultimately has to pay for it, whether it's the financial department or whether it's a single person. You could even automate the thing so that through the application itself. They don't do this right now, but it doesn't matter who pays, right? As long as someone's paying for the machine. And same in blockchain. Like if USDC is a centralized entity offering, something on the blockchain, then if they're paying, then great. If they stop paying, then we stop running the chain. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Outside of USDC, though, the idea is most of the chains that are going to opt for ICS are going to be new and unproven chains. So, I guess that would put the onus on the hub validators as well as governance to decide whether a new chain is worthy of being secured or not.
In the beginning, yeah, I can see that in the beginning. But as we, once we have ICS running on the Cosmos Hub, I guess the next step should be eventually to say, oh, if anyone bonds enough, or pays enough of a deposit, it'll just happen automatically.
Okay. This is, from my understanding, this is actually the way that interchain security is being proposed in the Atom 2 paper.
There is something, yeah, in the way that they justify, they say ICS, interchain security, is what's going to allow the inflation rate to not be so high, right? So they admit that this is a thing. So yeah, the problem is, yeah, you're right. I mean, the Atom 2.0 paper largely includes these elements, but then it also, is inconsistent with itself. And, ultimately, the whole papers, mostly trying to justify a large amount of treasury, a large amount of inflation, $500 million going into a treasury that's not governed. That's not the community pool, right?
Right.
Like, how do we know?
Yeah.
How do we know that there isn't, how do we know what process is there to ensure that the Treasury Council members, say, are properly chosen? There's no discussion about that. And to say that, oh, we'll just, it's okay because the governance is going to have to approve of it is not sufficient. Because what's likely to happen is there's going to be some insider group that forms. Honestly, it already exists, and they will, in secret, agree on who it should be before they come out with a proposal, right? It's going to be a political system with backroom dealings. It's what it's going to be.
Well, Jay, you've just described human interaction and politics at scale.
But the reason why Bitcoin is number one is because it removes that. So here's what we should really do. We should get rid of the mint transaction feature. We should stop trying to solve problems by inflating through governance. I don't know. It was a huge mistake. Let's get rid of it. Let's have a constitution that says here are some immutable rules in our constitution. You can't even change these, and say you can't mint anymore besides, the mechanism that already exists.
I have an excerpt from Keynes about inflation. So I'm just going to read it. I retweeted this. This came at a timely, just in time. It says, Lenin is said to have declared that the best way to destroy the capitalist system was to debauch the currency. By a continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate secretly and unobserved an important part of the wealth of their citizens. By this method, they not only confiscate, but they confiscate arbitrarily. And while the process impoverishes many, it actually enriches some. The sight of this arbitrary rearrangement of riches strikes not only at security, but at confidence in the equity of the existing distribution of wealth. Those to whom the system brings windfalls beyond their deserts and even beyond their expectations or desires become profiteers who are the object of the hatred of the bourgeoisie, whom the inflationism has impoverished, not less than of the proletariat. As the inflation proceeds and the real value of the currency fluctuates wildly from month to month, all permanent relations between debtors and creditors, which form the ultimate foundation of capitalism, become so utterly disordered as to be almost meaningless, and the process of wealth getting degenerates into a gamble and a lottery. Lenin was certainly right. There is no subtler, no surer means of overturning the existing basis of society than to debauch the currency. The process engages all the hidden forces of economic law on the side of destruction and does it in a manner which not one man in a million is able to diagnose.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, that's what it is. It's a ring of power, and whoever holds it, I mean, you don't even have to hold it. It will draw people in to hold it. So better chuck it into fire before it happens. That's what's happening right now.
Yes, sure. I mean, the temptation is too great if if something like this were to pass. But the other thing is, just looking at Bitcoin governance and Ethereum governance, it took years before anything were to take place, right? Bitcoin scaling debates lasted for what felt like a decade, but it ran over 3 to 5 years until finally one proposal won out, and even then it was difficult for it to pass, and it became ugly, and people fought wars, and other people forked away. And the same with Ethereum, right? With the DAO hack, as soon as Vitalik swept in and said, okay, all the exchanges, stop what you're doing, stop, halt transactions, and we're going to fix this thing, and then we're going to hard fork. That really shook the confidence of Ethereum for some. So similar thing happened with Juno, with their Prop 16, and right now something similar is being proposed for the Cosmos Hub. So just for people who are decentralization minded, this is just a change in issuance is never palatable. I mean, it shakes the confidence in the system because it shakes up the social contract that a lot of people originally signed with the project. But to me, interchain security doesn't seem contentious, and liquid staking does help buttress the provisions that you're supposed to get. But the thing is with liquid staking, Jay, how do you even prevent that from happening? Because somebody could just build it, and people, if people use it, then it's just going to be a thing.
That's that's the other thing I was going to suggest is I would love to see a minimal, super conservative hub along the spirits of Bitcoin that removes the mint transaction, perhaps even.
And when you say the mint transaction, what do you mean? Are you talking about
the ability to inflate atoms out of the default?
But how would you do that?
You just delete the mint transaction function.
Wouldn't that be a hard fork itself?
Well, I mean, it depends. If governance itself agrees this is what we should do, then it can just be a software upgrade transaction, right? And it could be a software.
Yeah, that's too. Okay. Yeah. Would that be a change in the social contract?
Would that be a change in the social? Yes, it would be a change in the social contract.
Okay.
Right.
That itself would be contentious as well.
That possibly. Itself, yeah, it would be contentious, but I guess what I'm trying to say, one of the things I'm trying to say is that we should embrace when there's like such a fundamental difference in values, core values, in principles. It's not a bad time to leave, as in it's not a bad time to. Okay, you don't even have to leave. It's not a bad time to ensure that there's an alternative. Because there's going to be an indefinite amount of arguing internally between people who will never reconcile their views, because people who believe that the mint feature is important, necessary. We should maximize. We should go all in on liquid staking. These people will never be able to reconcile with the people who say the opposite, that we should be more conservative, that we shouldn't inflate tokens, and that and even we shouldn't even have liquid staking. Okay, these are two different camps. They're always going to be battling each other. It makes more sense for there to be two different towns, and we'll see which one's better through evolution. And there's nothing wrong with that.
For the people who want to stay, for the people who believe in the atom and want utility to be imbued within it, how do you balance like maximally conservative hub with utility?
How do you balance a maximally conservative hub with utility? Well, like what I mentioned with interchain security. Okay, so interchain security is a way to have.
I think everyone agrees that interchain security is the killer application for the Cosmos hub, without needing to fold in all these, other bells and whistles that may or may not strictly improve the hub's performance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the proposal that I'm trying to push is, can it be possible that the next proposals just decouple a lot of these things and we get signaling for, each new feature that's being added? My problem with Atom 2.0 is that it's very similar with like how, infrastructure bills and just how bills are proposed in like US Congress. And I'm sorry to the people who are non-US. I understand there is a world outside of the US, but it's just the world that I pay attention to and like can speak more of. So it's just that all of these things, that there's non-contentious things that are proposed in bills, and then there's just like all this other stuff that's like also there. So it's like all or nothing. It's binary. So
pork and barrel.
Yeah, so that's a problem, right? We're trying to build systems that improve upon the old status quo, and right now it seems like we're kind of just mirroring the same processes that are there.
Honestly, it's because we'll keep getting this for as long as we have too much emphasis on governance. Anyways, I want to get back to this, but I want to answer a question you mentioned earlier. How can you stop liquid staking or limit it? So the answer is you need to do one thing, which will do 99% and might even fix the problem indefinitely. So that is, you limit interchain account staking. So you say you can't stake through interchain accounts. That'll solve most of the problem. There's one more thing that you might have to do, and I think we should wait and see if this becomes a problem. And even saying that we will wait and see until this becomes a problem and fix it when it becomes a problem itself might solve the problem. But that is, you might have to choose the cryptographic scheme that doesn't allow signature aggregation, or I don't know if that's necessary. Okay, so in other words, through the cryptography itself, you could allow multiple people to come together and sign stuff. But actually, it's not even going to be the problem. So in other words, if you stop interchain account staking, you've solved the problem. There's no more liquid staking.
Got it. Okay, so so that would be a question of, I guess, that's an implementation question, right? Because you just don't add that as a possibility in interchain accounts.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how it's implemented now, you might have to, whatever. It's not hard.
Yeah, Jae, what do you think about Osmosis' superfluid staking, or interfluid staking rather? So the idea is, so my validator is building that interfluid staking, and the current design is going to be through a CosmWasm contract. CosmWasm contract with a Go wrapper for the module. And then what we're saying is, in order to enable this, you need to like have this, or like run this CosmWasm contract on your chain. So it's not this like automated interchain accounts cross chain staking. It's that you need to do something as a chain and be able to reason about like the risks that you're taking in by enabling this, right? So like we're increasing the barrier to entry for something like that, which is like a more like a better way to do liquid staking, but like in a non-naive way to do liquid staking without interchain accounts.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, interchain accounts kind of gives you enough flexibility, so I don't see why you would want to solve it in a different way.
No, because we just established that interchain, like doing liquid staking through interchain accounts is too, like, it means that we're going to have rampant liquid staking protocols.
So
you just said that liquid staking is through interchain accounts is risky, right?
yeah,
I'm building off
okay,
of that.
I am, but I've also been saying that liquid staking itself is risky. So
like altogether, like not even alternative designs. Okay, well, what about the photon?
Okay,
Because the photon is like just another liquid staking model.
no, I wouldn't call it liquid staking. In some sense it is, but really it only seems like liquid staking because that's how it needs to be implemented. Here's what I mean. And by the way, whether or not photon is interesting, I think photon is interesting. I'm not necessarily pushing for it because you don't need the photon token in order to make the Cosmos Hub work. But if you do implement the photon, I can see it opening many more doors, and I can see that's quite powerful, and people misunderstand it.
Well, first of all, to mint a photon, do you have to burn or do you lock up atoms?
Okay, the name needs to change because I'm using the name photon for a lot of things and it's causing confusion. All right. So the latest version, let's call it deflationary atoms. That's what it is. Okay. So, and you don't, originally I was proposing that we burn atoms. Before that, I was proposing we just fork and copy the atom distribution. But I realized there's a way to make it all work that's much better, which is you bond your atoms. So you don't bond your atoms towards a validator in particular. In fact, you don't bond it towards any validator. That's the idea. And you get this other token. The idea is that there's a maximum number of these deflationary atoms that there can possibly exist. In other words, if you were to bond all of the atoms that are staked or not staked, that are staked to the validators or not, or free moving, if you were to take all those atoms and bond them towards deflationary atoms, then you would have exactly 1 billion deflationary atoms.
So how is the creation of this bonded atom done?
It will be with a new transaction type that says, bond towards deflationary atoms, or we should come up with a different name.
So I need to bond my atoms in order to mint the deflationary atom.
Yeah, in order to mint the deflationary tokens. Yep, that's the idea. Really, we need to, the best way to understand this is to flip it on its head, because right now we've got atoms that are that are inflating, right? But what this deflationary atom system is it's you can flip it on its head and say, really the token, okay, there's just two ways to look at it. You can look at it from one side or the other. It's like two sides of a coin. You can say there are 1 billion of these deflationary tokens, and some of these you can choose to turn them into inflationary atoms to participate in Cosmos Hub staking. And so, let's say 25% of the deflationary token holders choose to participate in Atom Hub staking. Then 25% of the market cap essentially is doing their thing in the Cosmos Hub staking world, and we can have this exponential inflation going on in the Cosmos Hub staking portion, which is within 25% of the market cap. It can do whatever we want with the Atom token, inflate it, right? In other words, for example, if in the staking world, staking portion, 25% of the market cap of the total system, we were to increase the supply of the inflationary Atom token by 100%, then the value of the Atom token, of the inflationary Atom token, would decrease. So it becomes half of its value, roughly speaking. But everything else outside the system would remain the same, if that makes sense.
You're saying that the dynamics between these two tokens ultimately even itself out?
Yeah, it does, exactly, because there is there's a conversion system that preserves an invariant. So flipping onto the other side of the coin, in other words, every deflationary token is backed by inflationary atoms. So you can go back and forth, yeah, and preserve your wealth, so to speak, right? But I don't want to focus on the photon token because it's an experimental idea, and first people have to understand it. And I can tell, if people don't understand it. If you do understand it, and then people tend to say, "Oh, wait, it's kind of cool," but like, okay, whatever, and it doesn't matter to me whether we implement this ultimately or not. I don't think right now is the right time to discuss it, because really what we need to be talking about is the problems with Atom 2.0. I want to talk about why people are voting no veto. Okay. And it's because the way in which Atom 2.0 is being pushed to the public is really problematic. I mean, not only are there problems in the Atom 2.0 paper, but the proponents of the Atom 2.0 paper are deaf to the criticism of it, and yet they're altogether still pushing for it. And they say things like, "Oh, there are problems with the Atom 2.0 paper, but we should still pass it because it reflects the will of the community or something or whatever." Which doesn't make sense. If there are flaws in a proposal, you shouldn't pass it. That's like a no-brainer. You should know, and if you need to, you should know and veto, if it's particularly bad. Right. So they're just saying things that are not true, that are detrimental to the health of the Cosmos Hub because they want this thing to pass.
Yeah, I mean, outside of intentions, it's the clear read from the distribution of yeses, nos, and nos with vetoes is that it's almost 50-50 right now between yes votes and no with vetoes. I mean, it's a little bit less than that, but it looks like no with veto is almost going to pass. So herein, I mean, I understand it as there are people with legitimate concerns, same as with you about Atom 2.0 for varying reasons. But yes votes seem to reflect that there is a strong desire and demand for Atom utility and for the Cosmos Hub to be used for something and for it to somehow accrue monetary premium in some way. I think the no votes say like yes and we want this, but we don't want to sacrifice security, convenience, like for these things.
It's also that we don't want proposals pushed like this, and we don't want to work with people who are okay with the way this thing is being done, and it's clear what the intention is. Hey, here's another example. I really want to talk about this one. And this is almost like 1984. Okay. There was proposal 75 And it tries to define no with veto so that it can only be used for this or that. Okay. And when it was proposed and pushed and accepted, they said it's just a sentiment proposal. But what that means is nothing, because once it passed, they then, the proponents of Atom 2.0 used it to say you shouldn't vote no with veto on Prop 82, which is ludicrous. That's exactly what no with veto is for. All right, but they're using a proposal that was passed previously on the wrong solution, the wrong answer. The premise that it was a sentiment proposal to tell people you can't veto 82. This is how they're doing it. And then at the same time, they're saying, and 82 is just a sentiment proposal. You see how this is ridiculous? They're using this is a sentiment proposal as just a catch-all phrase to say, go ahead and pass it. It's not a big deal. But that's making a mockery of the Cosmos Hub governance system. Yeah. So and people see this and really don't like it. And why would anyone want to continue supporting this kind of behavior when it's obviously going to lead to cronyism and ultimately the catastrophic destruction of the Cosmos Hub? It'd be immoral, right?
Well, look, it's clear to me that people are searching for leadership, and in a void of leadership, people are going to follow wherever the loudest voices are. So, that being said, glad you're back, Jae.
Well,
right?
Yeah,
you're back in action, going to keep building, and we're going to keep making Cosmos stronger. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna make our own movement here. We're making a movement. All right. And I wasn't, I'm not the only one doing this. You also saw Dokia, Cosmos Station. But look at everyone who's voting no veto. We're all leaders, okay, because we're fighting upstream against a giant wave, right? And so look at who's voting no veto and connect with them, because we're the ones who are going to be able to build a solution that's better, that's good and secure. Right. And yeah, I'm not going to stop. The whole reason why I was working on and made Tendermint and Cosmos is because I wanted to create a more accountable and transparent alternative to the financial system, which created derivatives and all kinds of engineering to create boom bust cycles that seemed engineered in order to extract value from the people who depended on it. I'm talking about the IMF crises in Asia, in South Korea. I'm talking about 2008 housing crisis. These things were really bad. They kind of really affected my family, my parents. I don't want the same. I don't want the same for anyone. But that's exactly where it's going. I'm not going to be able to sleep at night for as long as, the thing that I was working on gets abused to become the problem. So yeah, not going to stop.
I mean, yeah, this stuff requires, vigilance throughout, right? Because the natural tendency of humans is to centralize. Just look at how the web became more centralized into this Web 2 paradigm. We centralize and grow bigger and bigger governments, not decentralized. The human tendency is not to decentralize. So it's going to be an ongoing effort to just maintain this vigilance.
Yeah. And it requires us to call things out for what it is. It requires us to reflect on our own intentions, to change our minds. Okay. I mean, it's all good. A mistake is not an error until you refuse to change your mind and fix it. So fix it. Let's fix it within ourselves. Right.
Sure. Okay. So one last thing that we should cover is just High level atom 0, that's not been talked about a lot, but that's also an on-chain proposal. Yeah, we have like 10 minutes left before I have to, we have to jump off. So
sure. Okay. Well, look, the atom 0 was an attempt to kind of make the playing field even between atom 1 and atom 2, and it failed to do that. Okay, there was a flaw in it. Someone pointed it out, and I said, "Yeah, you're right. Atom 0 is flawed." So I said, "Let's, I don't support it anymore." Okay, that's how it should be. We should say, "All right, yeah, the proposal's flawed. We should do something else, or go back to the drawing board. We should stop supporting things when we know that it's flawed." Right. So that's what people need to do. So I don't really want to discuss atom 0 except to say that really the intent was to raise the bar for new proposals, to accept proposals that change fundamental things like tokenomics. That was the intent. And because the atom 1 constitution itself, my proposal for a constitution, basically says that's what we need. We need to raise the bar in order to change the constitution. And I didn't want to be hypocritical and just pass, and just try to pass a constitution with only a simple majority. So the solution to fix this, hypocritical aspect is to apply the same high level of bar to both proposals. That's why I created a minimal constitution called atom 0 to apply to both atom 1 and atom 2. But it wasn't the right approach, and people didn't understand it, didn't like it. It was too quick. It was just doomed from the beginning. Whatever. Now we have to focus on atom 2.
Got it. And as of today, there's 3 more days left until the voting period closes. It is a very close race. So if you haven't voted, please do so. Right? This is actually look at Cosmos voting turnout is just higher than any other like governance DApp anywhere. If you look at it, so yeah, like voting has been a problem in every other thing. Like if you look at Ethereum and how signaling proposals win, like voter turnout was maybe like 4%, and in Cosmos it's just everyone's super engaged. So that's that's a silver lining. I'm an optimist here. Okay.
Well, may I say one more thing?
Yes.
This is PSA. The way no veto is implemented in code, the way it is right now, if you want 82 to be stopped, you have to vote no veto, and voting no or abstain actually makes this worse. This is a flaw in the way the veto system works. But even if you abstain, if you vote abstain, it's worse than if you don't vote at all. Even if you vote no, it's worse than if you don't vote at all. So if you voted no or abstain, and you don't intend to make it harder for atom 2 for Prop 82 to be vetoed, please change your vote to no veto. That's all.
All right, got it. And that being said, thank you so much, Jae, for joining me on this podcast. And thank you everyone who's tuned in. I know y'all are very passionate about the future of Cosmos. There's clearly a lot at stake. And right now, everyone is witnessing what we went through internally at Tendermint, and now it's all public. Y'all are all in it.
You're right. This is what's been happening since
it's what's been happening for years. Yeah, this is always the contention, and yeah,
it's got to stop. There's no way to stop it unless we say it's gonna stop now.
I mean, right? Look, it's very clear. There's power centers, and the temptation to grab those power centers it's there. And then there's the decentralization maxis who want to cut that down. That's a simplified version of that. So
yeah, well, we should all watch Lord of the Rings a lot more, is what I think.
I mean, it's two ideologies, right? It's like one says, you need more, top-down governance. Centralization is going to lead to better adoption. And there's those who say, well, no, actually look at how things grow organically. Like adoption is an emergent phenomenon based on some, certain power laws, and just, leave that be. And, despite all of this, Cosmos has gained a lot of adoption. And Jae, you're right. The app chain thesis has proven itself out. When you were shouting to anyone who had listened to you in 2014, well, actually, no, 2016, when Cosmos was incepted.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, here we are, and to another couple more years. All right. Stick around, Jae. It's good to have you back, and thank you to everyone who's just so engaged in this and passionate. Everyone loves Cosmos and wants to see the future of this ecosystem grow. Ultimately, what we want is to have the Internet of Blockchain manifest. So, all right, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.